Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. So, I have a question for you. Are you doing good? I hope you are. Yes, whatever you're doing. And let's go over what's happening on the old marche. First, let me get it out of the way. Since I'm quite in the way at the moment. And it is very disturbing, I'm sure.
Hello.
Lots of distractions and disruptions. So what exactly is happening with the Bitcoin? Well, first of all, you may have noticed yesterday, it did what the probabilities indicated, right? Remember when I told you that there was a probability of it going to the upside just as well as the downside? And I said very specifically the downside probabilities, right? So they were there. They told you targets, right? Specifically, I said, look, there are probabilities in the 94 and 93K range, 95K. Well, it certainly dumped down to those targets, didn't it? Why? Because the VEPs, people. Because the VEPs. It's not by accident, right? It's the VEPs that keep the markets going. It's the VEPs that tell you what's about to happen. And it's the VEPs that give VEPs traders, which include people like the traders at Alpha Trading and people at the high frequency trading firms, the quantitative measurable, quantitative means measurable, so the measurable, the quantitative advantage, right? Mathematically measurable advantage over the entire market, specifically the retail market, and all traders who think they're smart money but are actually dumb money. Anybody using traditional TA, I don't care if they work for a big trading firm or if they trade at home in their underpants. Okay, if you're using lagging TA, you're dumb money. Now, you may have made a career out of using lagging TA because you were operating in defiance of the Black-Scholes formula, despite the fact that that's been around since the 70s. And it's been in use on the markets by options traders since the 80s. And it's been refined by certain traders, specifically Alpha Trading, right, this decade. So you may ask yourself, well, why am I the dumb money if I'm making a ton using traditional TA? Well, the answer is because you're putting more risk on the table than you need to. You're leaving more capital at risk. You're probably taking profit less than you should. And you're probably more emotionally attached to your trades than you want to be. And even if just two out of those three things are wrong or right, you're still the dumb money because you're using lagging information. Why on earth would you want to use lagging information? Why would you want to use yesterday's news to tell you what's going to happen today? It doesn't make any sense. We live in a real-time world, and we have for decades, by the way. I mean, CNN's been around since 1980. Cable television news, right, is now more than 40 years old. 24-hour news networks bring you information quote unquote in real time, but that's not even real time information. That is lagging information too. What does this say? Can I get a hi, bro? Hi, bro. Hi, Danica Pinjo. Hello. Hope you're doing well, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hope you're doing good. Right? So why is news lagging information? Well, news is lagging information because, first of all, the entire process of news, from the time an event happens until the time it's distributed to the consumer, that all takes time, right? The event happening, the initial reporter, even if it's on the scene in real time, and then has to report, meaning he has to carry that information again from the source through himself to the news organization he works for. And then from there, it has to go to the editor, at least one layer of editing, right? And then from there, it has to go at the very least to publishing, meaning distribution, right? So there's at least 4 layers of information there. Information gathering and processing and distribution, right? So even if it's in quote unquote real time on live TV, even that is delayed by seconds. Why? To censor certain things, because there are certain things they don't allow to be broadcast. Even that is delayed, but okay. Let's say, okay, fine. So, but live events are as close to real as anything else. Okay, so you have a 2-second delay. Let's say that's good enough. How much of the news that you actually watch is live in real time? I don't mean that the anchors are talking to you from their desk in real time. I mean that the news events that they're reporting on, you're actually watching in real time. And how much of it is reported news that happened a little while ago, maybe earlier on the same day or in previous days. Like very often, the death of a celebrity is not announced for a day or 2 or even 3 because their family wants to have some alone time before it becomes news and all that. That's quite common, right? How often is something to do with a government plan of one type or another not reported for a number of days, weeks, or months until after the fact, right? Because they also want their privacy. They want their ability to discuss their things before they report it, right? How often are businesses doing things weeks, months, or years ahead of when the public know it? Because again, the industry wants to have that discussion amongst itself before it becomes common consumer knowledge, right? That's why industry trade magazines, supposedly would bring you information before consumer news information. And I would always tell you, back when I was working much more closely with those trade magazines, that by the time you would see it, even in the consumer news, it was already so old that it was already beyond the age that it had already achieved to get into trade rags, So like, it's already old news by the time it gets into the industry trade rags. It's still new enough that consumers might not know about it, but it's already news reported in the trade magazines, right? Which means it's still probably too old for you to act on in most cases to get the majority of the fruit of that labor, right? You want to be the one making the news in the sense of you want to be either, well, if you're the publisher, obviously you want to publish the news, but if not, then you want to be one of the parties in the news story, right? Preferably the good party, right? The one that's, if it's business, you want to be the one that's doing good and profiting, right? Hopefully doing good and profiting. Of course, many companies are not doing good, but they're doing well. And yeah, that's the state of the world we live in. So anyway, that is why, for example, news is lagging information, and that's why you can't really use it to trade. Now, I know people will say, but I trade the news all the time and it works great. Okay. Look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself, ask yourself, really, how great am I doing as a trader? Am I consistently profitable as a trader? Am I consistently winning most of my trades? And be honest with yourself. You can't lie to yourself, right? And you can, but why would you? Be honest with yourself when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, and ask yourself, how well am I actually doing using this lagging information? Why wouldn't I use something like the VEPs, which keeps calling incredibly brilliant targets, right? Like, what is Bitcoin going to do today? Is Bitcoin going to bounce up from that low at around 94K or lower? Is it going to keep dropping down further? Look, we've been telling you for days and days, right, that you should expect at least a little bit of a retest towards that power mean ribbon on like the daily time frame. And yesterday it finally touched it. And it could still test quite a way down further. Look at where the reverse wave trend is. And of course, if it were to fall below that and go down to where the Fisher transform line is, it'd be a pretty significant test. To the downside, it would just be self pressure to the downside. And that would be just normal from a mean reversion point of view. Okay. Can it bounce from where it is and go past 100? It could. Look, here's the interesting news. Okay, on the 4-hour time frame yesterday, once it started dropping, it started hitting that third band to the downside of the 4-hour of the 3012 RMLR. What does that tell you? Well, if you know anything about the RMLR, then you should know, because I've told you like many times since I discovered it with my fellow alpha trading co-founders, right? Since we discovered the power that it could do that nobody else had ever figured out. It can literally tell you the future of the RMLR, and it could tell you whether or not the asset is in distribution or mean reversion very precisely. So what happens when that asset is no longer hitting the third band to the downside or the upside for a couple of candles on an RMLR, right? Well, once a couple of candles have passed, the vast overwhelming probability is that it is in mean reversion. It's not 100%, but it's more than 99.7%. Especially when you have it on the default settings of like the 30 bar band look back length, and especially like on a high time frame, right? So it's an extremely high probability. Once it stops hitting that third standard deviation band to the downside of the 3012 RMLR on the 4-hour, it will be in mean reversion after not hitting it for a couple of candles, right? By the way, it could be that it can complete the mean reversion even on the same candle that it hits that band to the downside, right? But if it happens to be walking back up relatively slowly, and it takes a couple of candles to begin the mean reversion process, well then after a couple of candles it's usually in mean reversion, and at that point it's just a matter of time of when and where will it hit it. Does that mean it can't continue to the downside to hit it? No, but it does mean that it's more likely to go to wherever that RMLR is than to go all the way further down to hit that third standard deviation band to the downside of that RMLR on that time frame again. Which means you can use that band as a take profit zone, and you can use that RMLR as another take profit zone. Yeah. So keep that in mind. See you guys in the live stream. Go check out the live streams on Alpha Trading, by the way. alphatradinghq.com/discord. They start Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. They're free to join. You can also watch on Rumble. and that'll do it.